Good morning, everyone. Boy, that's loud. Sorry. Welcome to the University of Minnesota. I'm Eric Kaler. It's my pleasure to serve as president of this institution. And we're here on our St. Paul campus, home to the College of Food, Agriculture, and Natural Resource Sciences. I'm very pleased to welcome Secretary Tom Vilsack. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here today and for your partnership with us. Governor Dayton and members of our congressional delegation, welcome. It's always a pleasure to have you visit. I also want to recognize Dean Al Levine. The Dean has led CFAN since 2006 and has just announced he's stepping down and returning to the faculty. Al has been a tremendous leader, a great advocate for the U and the agriculture community, and I know a great partner with you all. Please join me in thanking Al for his service. We appreciate you all coming to campus. When I prepared my notes, I wrote down, it appears we are finally going to have some summer in Minnesota, but I'm not really sure that's true. Behind us is a wheat research field used by the university and the USDA, although it's hard to tell because the wheat is only about 4 inches high due to the cold and wet, did I mention cold, spring that we've had. Seriously, my colleagues are here to discuss an important state and federal partnership to improve water quality. Partnership and collaboration are key to solving big problems, and we value our partnership with the USDA. We're also standing in front of the Cereal Disease Laboratory, a USDA lab on the University of Minnesota campus. And here's a fun fact. The CDL is the worldwide leader in UG99 research. And if you combine the university's faculty and staff with the CDL team, they work closely together and they create the greatest concentration of wheat researchers in the world right here in St. Paul. We also work closely with our congressional delegation. With 5 campuses and extension and research outreach centers throughout the state, each member here is our representative, and we value your work on behalf of the state, your districts, and the U. I know the senator needs to leave soon to get back to Washington to work on the Farm Bill. And let me underscore that research funded through that Farm Bill is critical to our mission. As the state's land-grant research university, our commitment to agriculture and the health and safety of our natural resources is real and deep. In this session, we renewed our partnership with the state of Minnesota. Governor Dayton and his legislative colleagues generally funded a research initiative, and 2 of the 4 priorities we identified for investment are food and water, areas of strength and importance for the university and the state. We're grateful for that funding and this collaboration. Again, welcome to the U. I look forward to continuing to work with you all on our shared priorities of safe food, clean water, and strong communities. Let me now introduce to you Matt Wohlman, the Assistant Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. Thank you all for coming.
Well, good morning and welcome. Thank you all for coming out today to support Minnesota's conservation efforts and to highlight the need to pass a new federal farm bill. Agriculture is an important cornerstone to Minnesota's economy. As Minnesotans, we value the health of our rivers, lakes, and streams. We also believe that agriculture and water quality can prosper together. Minnesota farmers care deeply about conservation. They have been strong adopters of both state and federal conservation programs. We know these efforts have provided measurable results for cleaning up our waters, and we all recognize that we need to do more. This is what makes Minnesota the ideal location to launch a new water quality initiative. In January of 2012, Governor Dayton, Secretary Vilsack, and EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson met to sign a historic Memorandum of Understanding to develop a voluntary program called the Minnesota Ag Water Quality Certification Program. The MOU called for a 15-member technical advisory committee made up of farmers, conservationists, and other stakeholders to develop recommendations on how we could implement this program here in our state. Some of the advisory committee members have joined us here today. Together, the 15-member advisory committee signed a unanimous recommendation on how to shape this program here in Minnesota. These recommendations became the basis for legislation carried by Senator Dan Sparks and Representative Gene Wagenius and signed into law by Governor Dayton just 2 weeks ago. These historic steps create an extraordinary opportunity for Minnesota farmers to demonstrate their commitment to conservation and water quality by voluntarily accelerating the adoption of water quality best management practices. In return, farmers will be certified and receive assurance that they will not be required to implement new additional water quality requirements during their certification period. The payoff for Minnesotans is we all will enjoy cleaner lakes, rivers, and streams in the future. Farmers, meanwhile, will have greater stability with regard to conservation goals, the regulatory environment, and related business costs. It is important to understand that certification is not a free pass. It does not exempt farmers from existing rules or requirements, but it does offer insurance against a moving regulatory goalpost in the future. The state has provided $3 million in funding to launch this new program. This funding is coupled with federal funding already committed by Secretary Vilsack. Tapping into these resources, we will provide financial and technical assistance to farmers who volunteer to participate in this program. In February, Commissioner Frederickson put out a call for recommendations to get the best ideas on where this program should be piloted. We received over a dozen recommendations from local watershed districts. Today, Governor Dayton will announce the 4 selected watersheds in which the Minnesota Ag Water Quality Certification Program will be piloted. With this announcement, our state officially becomes the first state in the nation to implement this historic program. Please join me now in welcoming a great friend of farmers and Minnesota agriculture, Governor Mark Dayton.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, President Kaler and all the distinguished guests who are here. And Secretary, welcome back to Minnesota. Glad you're here again. And our Commissioner Frederickson would be here today, but he's in Turkey on a USDA-sponsored trade mission. So he sends his regrets. But to Senator Franken, and if you have to get back to Washington to pass the farm bill, I'll let you have my time right now.
I'm okay.
Okay, all right. And Representative McCollum, Representative Walls, and I want to especially recognize and thank the members, as Assistant Commissioner Wohlman just mentioned, of the advisory committee who spent hundreds of hours working on this, put all this together and agreed on. Would you raise your hand and be acknowledged? Thank you very much for your dedicated work. All right. And also State Representative Rick Hansen, who is there any other legislator here? Rick's here. And Representative Hansen is representing the entire Minnesota legislature today, which means he gets all the credit for the $3 million that the legislature provided from the legacy fund for this enterprise. So thank you very much, and your support is very, very important. So as Matt said, we're announcing today the very next stage of the Minnesota Agriculture Water Quality Certification Program, which is a partnership between the state of Minnesota, the United States Department of Agriculture, and the Federal Environmental Protection Agency. Last January of 2012, I was honored to join with you, Mr. Secretary, and then EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson in signing a Memorandum of Understanding at our state capitol to work together to develop this program in Minnesota. Last month, the Minnesota legislature authorized this program in statute. It also appropriated, as I just mentioned, $3 million in clean water legacy funds, which will supplement the $6.5 million in federal funding, which Secretary Vilsack graciously approved for this undertaking, for which we thank you, and we thank members of our congressional delegation here who supported that, and without whose continuing support, this will not be successful. It's my honor now to announce the 4 pilot project areas selected to pioneer the Minnesota Agriculture Water Quality Certification Program. They were chosen from over a dozen extremely well-qualified applicants, which by my calculation means I'll have 4 area leaders happy with me and at least 8 that'll be unhappy, which is, in my line of work, not a good percentage. But They were all excellent applicants, and I look forward to have the opportunity to expand this program to include the others and others that will follow this pioneering example that the four of you are going to set. Now, I'm told the representatives of the projects are here, so I'm going to tell your name. If so, come on up and shake hands with the secretary and anybody else you want to shake hands with. The Whitewater River Pilot Area, the Whitewater River Watershed Joint Powers Board. Thank you. This is represented by Matt Flynn today.
Hey, Matt, good to see you.
He's Olmsted County Commissioner and Chairman of the Joint Powers Board. The Whitewater River Watershed consists of 250,000 acres in parts of Olmsted, Wabasha, and Winona counties. Its upper reaches lie in the Rochester Plateau, which is dominated by row crops. Lower parts have steep valleys with wooden slopes and dairy and beef operations. Whitewater River Watershed is also most popular outdoor recreation and tourism destinations in Minnesota, with more than 100 miles of trout streams and 2 state parks. And we spent a lot of time on you and the situation in your area with the silica sand mining in the session, and now you will do in partnership on this project as well to make sure that those trout streams and every other water in southeast Minnesota remains protected. Thank you. Thank you for your leadership. Next is the Middle Sauk River Pilot Area, the Stearns County Soil and Water Conservation District. Mr. Uphoff? Thank you. Represented by Mr. Chuck Uphoff, who owns and operates Uphoff Dairy, and is also chairman of the Watershed District's Board of Supervisors. The Sauk River Watershed covers more than 50% of Stearns County, which is the top dairy producing county in the state of Minnesota. There's 727 agricultural producers in the Middle Sauk River Watershed's 175,000 acres, over 70% of which is devoted to agriculture. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next is the Elm Creek Pilot Area in Martin County, Jackson, and Faribault counties. Linda, how do you do? Thank you. And spearheaded by organization Rural Advantage, which is being represented by its president, Linda Meschke, is here today.
Congratulations.
The Elm Creek Watershed travels through the eastern part of Jackson County across Martin County and joins the Blue Earth River just into Faribault County near Winnebago. It includes 73,000 acres. The 3 soil and watershed districts, Martin County, Jackson County, and Faribault County, have over 100 years of combined leadership to the Elm Creek area. They know and they have rapport with the landowners and the producers, and they understand the issues and concerns of the area. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. And fourth is the Whiskey Creek Pilot Area, the Buffalo Red River Watershed District. Congratulations. Represented today by Mr. Peter Fjestad, who is the manager of the Buffalo Red River Watershed District and also a farmer in that area. The Whiskey Creek drainage area lies in Wilkin County in western Ottertail County. Agriculture is the major land use throughout the area and also the main economic driver. Primary crops in the area include corn, soybeans, sugar beets, and wheat. Congratulations. Thank you for being here. Thank you. So congratulations to these 4 pioneering watershed districts. And Mr. Secretary, I believe we're off to a very good start here in Minnesota. We thank you for your leadership and that of Senator Franken, Representative McCollum, and Representative Walls, and we're looking forward to a successful partnership in the months and years ahead. And now it's my honor to introduce my Congresswoman, Betty McCollum, who, despite being from a predominantly urban district, has great support for agriculture as a good Minnesotan and as a long-time serving member of the Minnesota delegation. And you know, in a world where seniority counts, Betty has really established herself as one of the leaders in the her caucus in the U.S. House of Representatives, and very grateful for her representation on agriculture issues and many others. So, Representative McCollum.
Thank you, Governor. Well, welcome to the University of Minnesota St. Paul campus, where we just had a fabulous graduation, Mr. President, and I was very honored to be the commencement speaker here. This is a great day. My former colleague from the Minnesota House, Doug Peterson's here, and for 20 years we have been working as a state to create this type of opportunity to protect our wetlands, to help our farmers, to help our rivers, not only for this generation but for the next generation. So I'm very, very pleased that today has happened, and congratulations to the watershed districts. I have a few farms in the New Fourth and a couple vineyards, so we'll be counting on your success so that we can incorporate this in the rural, urban, suburban areas of our state into the future too, because I think Minnesota can provide great leadership with this. Senator Franken, we need a farm bill, and I'm glad you're working on it. And I know Representative Walz and I are very concerned with some of the dollar figures that have been proposed on the other side of the aisle in the Minnesota House, which would affect the great research that goes on here at the cereal labs, not only to produce the best food and the safest food here in the United States, but to lead the way to feed the hungry all around the world, as the University of Minnesota has been such a leader in doing it. So congratulations. I look forward to working with the state of Minnesota as well as the Federal Agriculture Committee, because my role on the Interior Committee, sometimes we kind of intersect on a lot of these programs. So you can count on me to fight on the funding. I know we can count on Tim to try to pass a bill in the House, but Senator, we really need your help with the numbers. So thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here, and thank you, President Kaler, for all you do here, and to Al, Dean, thank you for the education you've given me as I've been up here. I feel I've had the graduate education you could possibly get by the time we've spent up here and learning the issues important to the 1st District of Minnesota. Matt, congratulations to you. I think Professor Borlaug would be proud of us today and proud of you and the work you've done. And as Linda asked, she said, gee, 2 of them are in your district. It's a pure coincidence that Matt used to work for me. Pure coincidence. So, but Matt and Linda, we are incredibly proud. We have folks that are committed to this, to the governor in making this a reality. This is the way things should work. This is the way things can work. All too often we're put in situations of false choices are presented themselves. This is one of those cases that in my district I am incredibly proud and honored to represent one of the most productive agricultural regions in the world. And that can be backed up with statistics. That's not misplaced pride. That is true. And we have folks doing it in a smart manner. We have folks using the research that comes out of here. We have folks using checkoff dollars to put that research to use. And what we're doing is we understand we can feed and clothe and power the world, and we don't have to have the trade-off being degradation of the environment. We can do both. We can make sure we have clean water standards at the same time we're producing the food that the world needs. And it's through projects exactly like this that makes that possible. And I can tell you, we have, and you're going to see him up here in a minute, in Secretary Vilsack, who I oftentimes refer to. He's from southern Minnesota. That's that whole place just south of my district is southern Minnesota. I can tell you, not only do we have a great, smart thinker in agricultural issues, we have a visionary in that long tradition that's come out of Iowa and Minnesota, the shared legacy of Norman Borlaug. The idea that we can start looking towards the future, looking towards future generations. And I will tell you, the Farm Bill, getting it done, has so many implications. And the programs that are in there, again, getting away from the false choices. A while back, I was on the Preggy farm down near Chatfield and a spring feedlot down there. And we used some federal dollars through EQIP, and we did it with the Department of Ag here, and they had the DNR involved in this. We had Trouts Unlimited in the private sector. And what they did down there was some smart investments and some smart vision is we created an ability to be able to have that spring feedlot contain and still have even more cattle on it, but do it in a smart way with ramps down to the creek and doing some rebuilding. And what you got out of that was a very productive private enterprise in cattle ranching, You have a trout stream now that is one of world-class significance in terms of the trout that can be pulled out of there. It has created a growing economy that in Minnesota and the United States is in the billions of dollars in outdoor activities, all the while leveraging those dollars to a good outcome. We have cleaner water, we have productive businesses, we have growth in a business community and in the region. Those are the things that we should be doing. And so I congratulate all the folks involved in this, looking forward to coming down and seeing the process that we make in this. And I can tell you it's done through collaboration, it's done through compromise, and it's done through a farm bill now to help the momentum going. And I can't tell you how much I feel confident in this, and I can tell you that we have an advocate in our senators, in Senator Klobuchar, and my pleasure to introduce to you not only a great champion of agriculture in Minnesota, a really proud grandpa, Senator Franken. So,
thank you, Tim. It's great to see you. I don't even miss the 60 pounds.
I don't want to find it again.
Yeah, don't find that again. Thank you all very much. I think the weather is going in the right direction, right? I'm very pleased to be here for the rollout of this great federal-state partnership that will help our farmers better protect our lakes and our streams and our rivers and our habitat for wildlife. Governor Dayton and Secretary Vilsack deserve a lot of credit for this partnership, which really highlights Minnesota's leadership in conservation and responsible farming. That's Minnesota leadership, not Iowa so much. Leadership, I mean, as a state, this guy is a great leader. Our farmers are essential to our state's economic well-being. 1 in 5 jobs in Minnesota is tied in one way or another to agriculture. And people who farm for a living are also some of our best environmental stewards. The fact that we are the first state in the nation that will take part in this agricultural water certification program reflects our leadership as environmental stewards, and I want to congratulate the 4 leaders of their watersheds. Under this new program, our farmers will not only be improving our state's water quality, but they will also be getting some certainty. They'll be getting certainty over conservation regulations while they're in this program. It's farming done right, it's conservation done right. Secretary Vilsack and I were just kind of turning to each other going like, this makes so much sense. And it's one of those kind of programs that you go like, why didn't we think of this before? But you can't beat yourself up over that. You have to say this makes a lot of sense. Today is also a good day for Minnesota farmers for another reason. Today will be a big step in a new 5-year farm bill. After I leave here, I'm going to be flying back to Washington, where we're going to pass this bill. As I travel around the state, I hear from farmers that they need the certainty that a 5-year farm bill will give them, and that's going to happen. It's going to happen in the Senate, and the House will take it up. It's a farm bill that's good for farming, it's good for conservation. The bill makes reforms, it gets rid of direct payments, but it has a strong safety net, crop insurance program. And it's a good bill for conservation because it ties participation in the crop insurance program to participation in conservation programs. I'm proud that the bill also contains a strong renewable energy section, which I helped write. There are advanced biofuels, wind, biomass. These are technologies that Minnesota leads in, and it'll be good for Minnesota. It'll be good for America. It'll reduce our dependence on foreign oil. and it'll create American jobs. Again, right after this event, I'm flying back to Washington. This is going to be a big bipartisan vote on this bill. It's going to be a big bipartisan vote. You know, it's actually one of the pleasures of working on a farm bill is that it is so bipartisan. If anything, there are the divisions that you see normally are just regional. I will agree more with Chuck Grassley, Republican from Iowa, on the bill than I will with Mark Pryor from, he's from one of those southern states. And no one understands the importance of this farm bill than Secretary Tom Vilsack. This is the second time this year that the Secretary has joined me here in St. Paul, and I just want to thank him for that. As a governor of southern Minnesota, he understands the importance of farming and the needs of farmers in our state. And I really got to say, this guy is so responsive to me, to Amy, I'm sure to other senators who aren't as important as us. But he is a real friend to Minnesota farmers and the rest of the Minnesota ag community. So I'm going to turn it over to Secretary Vilsack now so he can tell you more about this partnership, which really is, it's unique. We're the first. And it really is a brilliant, common sense way to go on conservation and regulation and giving those who are certified the certainty that comes with the program. And I just want to thank the Secretary for his leadership. I want to thank the Governor for his leadership. I give you our Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks, folks. Thank you. No, please sit down. Thank you. Do you ever wonder what politicians who gather before events like this talk about before they come out? I've always wondered that. So I'm going to tell you, and I hope I don't spill any secrets here, but we had Senator Franken, we had Governor Dayton, Congressman Walz, myself, and the Congresswoman, McCollum, and we were standing around and we were talking about grandkids. Grandkids. I'm a little sore today because I spent the weekend with my grandkids. They're 4 and 1.5, and I'm exhausted. So, and I was suggesting to Senator Franken and the governor that that's what they have to look forward to, total exhaustion. So I really appreciate being here this morning. This is a very important day, not just for the state of Minnesota, but for all America. And I can't say enough good things about Governor Dayton and the Minnesota legislature and Commissioner Frederickson and the Department of Agriculture for the work and leadership that they have provided over the last year. We signed that Memorandum of Understanding. They went to work. They passed the legislation to provide the degree of certainty that producers need. They identified resources in what are always tight and difficult budgets. And honestly, without their leadership and without the leadership of Minnesota's agriculture, this wouldn't have happened. But today it is happening. And I will tell you that it is really an important day because it launches not just a water quality certification program here in Minnesota, but it indeed provides an extraordinary example for the entire country and creates, I think, a new dynamic and a new way of approaching regulation. So often we hear criticisms of regulations, and part of the reason is that folks can never be assured that if they follow the regulation that the rules aren't going to change. And so there's a reluctance to invest. There's a reluctance to embrace what folks know is good for the land and good for the rivers. But Minnesota is now saying there's a different way, a new way, a more creative way to approach these issues that should encourage people to look at ways in which they can be even better stewards of the land. And Governor, as far as I'm concerned, I would welcome you picking up the phone today and calling my governor, Governor Branstad, and explaining to him that I was here and not in Iowa making this announcement. But even with the state's leadership, this day may not have happened were it not for the congressional delegation and the senators who represent this great state. Senator Klobuchar called me yesterday to apologize for not being here today. She is chairing a subcommittee hearing involving an appointment, a nomination of a Minnesotan to an important position, and she wanted to make sure she was well prepared to represent that individual in the state, but she wanted to make sure that she was noted today, and her leadership and Senator Franken's leadership on this issue and on the farm legislation cannot be underestimated. Senator Franken was a bit modest when he talked about the energy title of the Farm Bill. He actually did more than just had a few thoughts on it. He is creating and helping to create a new expanded opportunity with bio-based product production. We understand energy and we understand fuel and the multitude of things we can now use to produce fuel and energy and reduce our reliance on foreign oil and create jobs. But the senator wants us to take it to the next level. He wants us to understand that biochemicals can be produced, that bioplastics can be produced, that biofabrics and fibers can be produced. That's bioprocessing jobs in rural communities. And it's extraordinary the reach of that energy title. And to the House members here, he also had another good idea, which was to provide some mandatory funding in that piece of legislation. So, Senator, thank you for that leadership. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the two members of Congress who were here. Representative McCollum and I don't see each other all that much because our departments are not, or the committee assignments don't get us together. But here's two things I know about her. For our good friend Bud Philbrook, I know that she is absolutely committed to this issue of feeding the world, which is a strong Midwestern tradition. But what you may not know about her is that she is also deeply concerned about protecting the health of our forests. Something that's important to Minnesota, something that's important to the United States, something that's important to water issues because our forests are the best conservers and preservers of water. And she has been fighting hard to assure that we have the sufficient resources to better restore our forests, and in the event of a fire, and there are unfortunately too many of those, that we're in a position to fight those fires more effectively. So, Congresswoman, thank you for that advocacy. And last but certainly not least, I sort of concur with Senator Franken. Congressman Walz just is not the congressman he used to be. He's just not. You know, there's just a lot less of him, and now he's got all of us thinking about how there ought to be a lot less of us. Thanks a lot, Tim. Here's a guy who's passionate about, and you saw it today, he's passionate about his farmers and his dairymen in particular. He is on the Ag Committee. He is a force on that committee. He has helped shepherd the bill through the House Ag Committee, which is no easy feat. And he is going to be one of the principal spokespersons on the floor of the House. When the Senate passed bill comes over to the House and the House Ag Committee puts its bill on the floor, it's going to require a bipartisan vote. And a lot of members of Congress, a lot of Democrats in particular, are going to be looking at Tim Walz and asking themselves, what's Tim doing on this? What's he thinking? What's he voting on? He is a leader along with Colin Peterson. You all are very, very blessed in this state to have extraordinary leadership, and I really appreciate his leadership, but also his friendship. And he gets that connection between water quality and landscape investments and outdoor recreation. You all get this in Minnesota, but you'd be surprised how few people do understand the economic piece of this. It is a to put a finer point on his point, it is a $654 billion industry, outdoor recreation. $654 billion is spent annually by Americans on outdoor recreation. It is a way of attracting people from other countries to this country, so it's actually an export as well. It's a job creator. thousands, tens of thousands of jobs are connected to this in this state. There's no mistake about it. And Congressman Walz has been a very big proponent of CRP and some of the other programs that create the habitat that allow us to have better hunting and fishing opportunities. And we're here on a great university campus. And I will tell you, this research that's being done on wheat is extraordinarily important in terms of the capacity of this country to lead and to help other countries around the world fight off disease. And it obviously does continue the great tradition and legacy of a Iowan, Norman Borlaug, who found his way up here somehow. And I got to tell you, President, it wasn't because of the academics up here. It was because you all offered him a wrestling scholarship, and so there you have it. Let me talk about this program, what we're doing here today. I mean, 4 watersheds, basically providing resources from the state and the federal government. And our resources are coming from the EQIP program, and that will provide assistance, technical assistance for farmers to better understand what the resource is that they have and to assess what they need to do to help them design the appropriate practice and to identify best practices on that land, and then to monitor and follow up to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to do. It's extraordinarily important to have that partnership and that cost share element of this. Our EQIP program in the last 4.5 years since I've been secretary has provided over 130,000 producers assistance and help. It's one of those reasons why this 5-year farm program's got to get passed. I like to refer to it as a food, farm, and jobs bill because it's all of that. But this is an extremely important program. And this water quality initiative complements 2 other programs that the state of Minnesota is engaged in. You all have taken leadership in the National Water Quality Initiative, where we've identified smaller watersheds in Minnesota to seek improvements, and that's been part of an effort to try to complement the Healthy Watershed Initiative, which is focused on the upper Mississippi River Basin, where the Department of Agriculture, USDA, has invested nearly $300 million in states that border the Mississippi to provide thousands of producers the ability to do a better job of conservation on their land. So this is an extremely important part of the conservation title, and it's the reason why it's important and necessary that we get this bill done. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the research piece of this. As practices are embraced, research will be done, and universities like this one will benefit from that research. And we just recently announced an open data initiative at USDA where we're basically opening up all of our research that has been stored in USDA for years and years and years, so that the great scientists here at the University of Minnesota and elsewhere can take advantage of it. The research title of this Food, Farm, and Jobs bill is another historic opportunity to create a foundation in agricultural research that complements what we do at USDA. It would allow us to leverage resource dollars more effectively and invest more in great universities like Minnesota. Agricultural research becomes even more important when you recognize the changing climate that we're confronting. And just last week we announced a major initiative at USDA to focus on this changing climate, to equip our producers regionally with information and knowledge as to how best to adapt. If summer's a little late coming to Minnesota, that's going to have an impact and effect on what's grown and how it's grown here in the state. We need to help farmers be better prepared for that future. We're also creating a new tool. We have done the largest soil sample assessment in the history of mankind. 144,000 soil samples were taken at over 6,000 locations around the United States, and that has now allowed us to create a baseline of information about carbon sequestration capacities of soil. So now what we're going to be able to do is to provide through our Comet Farm Net program a tool for farmers to be able to allow them to gauge precisely what the conservation benefits will be of a particular practice tailored specifically to their land. Now what that means is that they'll be able to quantify the benefits of that conservation practice, and to the extent we can quantify it, we can begin creating opportunities for market development where industries, regulated industries, may need that conservation benefit to satisfy some regulatory responsibility they have. There's just an exciting, unlimited future here in agriculture and in adjusting to this changing climate. So we are excited about that. And finally, the reason why Senator Franken's got to get back to Washington isn't just to vote on that bill, because he will start working on another bill that's important to agriculture, and that's the immigration reform bill. This is a pro-agriculture bill, make no mistake about it, because it's going to allow us to have, for the first time in a long time, greater certainty about our workforce. We have crops not being harvested today in America. Betty, you want to feed the world? We have crops that are just not being harvested because we don't have enough people to do the work, because we have a broken immigration system. So this is a bill that's pro-agriculture. Ironically, it's also a pro-growth, pro-deficit reduction, pro-Social Security bill, because you're going to bring a lot of people out of the shadows and put them in a situation where they'll be paying taxes and contributing to the Social Security system, strengthening it. And this is a pro-security bill, because it will provide for a much stronger border, because you can't have comprehensive immigration reform without a stronger border security. So this is extremely important work for the United States Senate to do, because it will build, hopefully, momentum. The Food, Farm, and Jobs bill being passed in a bipartisan way, immigration reform hopefully being passed in a bipartisan way, sending it over the House in strong bipartisan votes, hopefully will build the momentum for the House to do the same, and to reassure us that our democracy is working the way it's supposed to work, the way the state of Minnesota worked in passing this historic opportunity that we celebrate today. So it's an important time in agriculture, and I want to thank the state of Minnesota. Truly and honestly, I want to thank the state of Minnesota for providing this leadership, because now we can take this proposal, this program. I can guarantee you I am going to be talking to Iowans about this, and how embarrassed I was that I had to be in Minnesota to make this announcement. All right, and hopefully they will follow suit, and then we'll go down to Missouri and talk to the folks in Missouri and say, how can you let Minnesota and Iowa do something? You know, all of a sudden it will sweep across the Midwest, and then ultimately to other regions of the country. And it will create a new approach to regulation, a new relationship between those who regulate and those who are regulated. Certainty, assurance, assistance, and help, and an understanding of the benefits. So this is a big day, Governor. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. Thank you all.